Welcome to AI for Local Impact, a podcast about how artificial intelligence is shaping development by highlighting work done through the AI4D program. Today's episode is a little different. This is the first in our debate series. This debate was held in October 2025 when members of the AI4D Network convened in Cape Town to reflect on the work done by the program so far. In this episode, we'll be tackling one of the most pressing questions in global AI governance. Does regulation hinder innovation in AI? The motion itself, regulation hinders AI innovation. Those for the motion argue that regulation stifles experimentation, slows down discovery, raises costs for new entrants, and limits international competitiveness. Those against the motion argue that regulation safeguards human rights, ensures accountability, and creates trust that makes AI more practical and widely adopted. At the heart of this debate is a key provocation. Should AI be regulated through hard laws, binding treaties, national legislations, and acts, or should we allow innovation to evolve before strict governance takes shape? You'll hear both perspectives in this episode, followed by a summary of the main takeaways. As an interactive debate, there will also be input from the audience that was present at the taping. As always, I'm your host, Salam Abdallah, researcher at the Global Center on AI Governance. Let's dive in.
So to get us into the battle of words today, I have with me, actually it's interesting, the proposition team is from the Global Center on AI Governance, which is saying that regulation hinders AI innovation. Quite paradoxical. So the first speaker today is Mark Gaffley, who is the Director of Legal and Operations at the GCG. Also on the proposition team is Dr. Fola, who is Executive Director at the GCG. On the opposition team, I have, actually everyone here is a doctor, I think. And also, they're all lawyers, by the way. We didn't plan that. Okay, I have Dr. Chijoke Okori, who is a technology lawyer and associate professor at the Department of Private Law at the University of Pretoria. And Priya Chetty, who is Executive Director at the Research ICT Africa. So these four people are going to be debating today. Could you all come up, please? A round of applause for them. Okay, caveat. The lawyer in Mark's coming out now. These are not necessarily their actual views. I hope not. I hope not. So just on voting, so we're going to vote at the end of everything. So I'll display a QR code for you to vote. Just scan it and you can vote. I will see how everything's moving.
As someone who has spent 6 years working towards championing responsible AI policy, governance, and regulation, it's quite refreshing to stand before you all and argue why we don't need it. Perhaps to kick off, I can start with a riddle. What doesn't rhyme with progress but does rhyme with stagnation? The answer, as you all may have guessed, is regulation, the very topic under the microscope today. So should we regulate artificial intelligence? If I may use an analogy, recently undersea cables in the Red Sea were damaged by what experts believed was a commercial tanker dragging its anchors along the seabed. These cables are the backbones of the internet and may serve as a metaphor for AI and other world-altering emerging technologies under discussion in this forum. What I want to bring to light here is that as a metaphor, the ship may represent our AI innovators. And there are two inferences we can draw from the analogy. First, our innovators are incapable of realizing their hopes and ambitions if they're forced to travel the seas with their regulatory anchors down, because innovators just weren't designed to function like this. Second, by traversing the oceans in this way, the ships seen as innovators have also damaged the very technology we're asking them to innovate. Innovation, by definition, is anti-regulation. That's why we speak to its revolutionary capabilities. It represents a disruptive force that takes established practices, upends them, and makes them obsolete or redundant to bring about something new and better. Put simply, we don't get to version 2.0 if we make innovation stand alongside regulation. As Prof. Vukosi mentioned earlier, our computer scientists are solutionists, and they need the unobstructed space and trust to bring their solutions to life. If we put rules in place to govern AI today, tomorrow our AI innovators won't be innovating, they'll be complying, stuck in a world of the 1.0. And on compliance, I've never heard anyone speak with enthusiasm and excitement about attending a compliance conference. So, some of us worry about AI black boxes, but the real worry should be about check boxes. How much time, money, and resources does regulation take away from those hoping to solve for problems, many of which are pressing and require urgent responses? Artificial intelligence also increasingly represents the space attracting our brightest young minds. This is important, as regulation is not just a handbrake to the big tech bros, who arguably have the resources to respond to it and still do as they please anyway. It's also stifling the millions of hopeful and aspirational youths that look to the technology to unlock a brighter future for themselves and their communities. How can birds fly if their wings are persistently clipped every time they attempt to leave the nest? This is why we need to be left to innovate freely. Our colleagues may argue that regulation is the safe way to innovate, but AI innovators are no longer in their infancy. They've grown out of unhinged adolescence of the 2000s, where moving fast and breaking things was encouraged. They've matured and learnt about sandboxes and other ways to gather stakeholders and test before deployment. Yes, innovators have matured, and we've started to see the benefits of their work across continents and across sectors, many of which don't have AI regulations in place. A number of us in the room today are testament to this good work. And so to reiterate, all innovation needs is trust, not the red tape of regulation. We already have regulation that governs effectively, and my colleague will speak to this in more detail. Taking South Africa as an example, if a technology violates a constitutionally protected right, we can turn to the Constitution. If innovators develop an agri-tech solution, South Africa has a plethora of legislation governing the agri-component of agri-tech. It follows that there's already enough regulatory stability to counter the hypothetical and imagined chaos our learned colleagues think may erupt if innovation is not regulated. To close, in the ship analogy mentioned earlier, there was a possible sabotage and intentionality angle which is still being investigated. In the real world, it remains to be seen whether someone did in fact request the ship to drop its anchors and damage undersea cables. In our setting, we need only turn to the opposition team to hear why anchors should be dragged along the seabed. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just respond by asking everyone here about their levels of safety and reassurance across the distinct AI options. AI beta analytics and solutions that offer better functioning of digital platforms, online matching, chatbots, and credit scoring. Advanced AI that simulates human cognitive abilities like perception, vision, and spatial processing that are able to analyze unstructured data. And autonomous AI with the enhanced ability to interact with humans and learn on its own. I ask this question with the knowledge of cases of child suicide from engaging with autonomous AI, the scourge of physical assaults and aggression on persons who are incorrectly profiled suspects, incorrect medical diagnoses and treatment adjusted to the insurance category of the person applying. The loss of work and dignity that comes with AI-enabled automation for bricklayers and stock checkers, and the existential threats to democracy due to basic but silent analytical AI interfering with elections, campaigns, and results. I am all for AI for development for Africa, recognizing the vast and unprecedented catalytic innovation capability in AI for social good. But I'm a realist. Rampant innovation and investment needs relevant and proportionate regulation to ensure that AI development and use safeguard human rights for marginalized groups with the most to lose from failures in credit scoring, surveillance AI, and for children who will naturally come to love and trust enhanced human-like AI. When we turn against order and reason that regulation provides, when we lose understanding or devalue human freedoms and liberties, then even the innovation we pursue has a shelf life. For Africa, I want to emphasize that the impacts of AI discrimination is twofold. The harms faced by the general population, and the second is the systemic discrimination that comes on an entire African generation who will experience adversity on their health, economic opportunity, wealth accumulation, which consequently trickles down to the later generations. For example, AI solutions that prioritize factors like costs and profit over the well-being of patients. Secondly, AI can drastically weaken or suspend our prospects for prosperity and transformation. I don't think it's a case of anchors down. AI solutions in the education sector that are radically biased can limit the admission of our African students into academic institutions. Similarly, racial discrimination in the labor market in relation to hiring, performance appraisals will continue to limit our wage growth and promotion of Africans. For women, constitutional rights are just not enough. AI data analysis of such systems reveal their sensitive personal information. We know now that online radicalization is propagated by a deliberate social media strategy of violating people's online personal private data, misinformation, and manipulation. When these prove insufficient, then there is direct and personal targeting, especially of women, and especially through online gender-based violence. I am the solutionist, and that's why I'm a solutionist for regulation.
I too agree that AI can potentially cause harmful impacts, but I submit that we already have enough regulation to protect us from the potential harms that AI may cause. If we take Africa as an example, we already have 36 data protection laws on the continent. 25 of those laws have rights that protect Africans from automated processing. We have more than 20 laws that focus on competition, that promote public interest, and prevent abuse of dominance by big tech. We have human rights laws that protect Africans, humans all over the world, from the so-called potential harms that AI may present. We can use all the fancy words to describe the new harms and risks that AI presents, but I submit to this audience that none of those harms and risks are new. We already have regulation to protect us from the risks of AI. My learned opponent, Professor Chijioke, is a professor of intellectual property, and she will agree that we already have enough intellectual property laws to protect the thriving innovation that we are seeing in developing countries in relation to AI. But we must also bear in mind that the law has a pacing problem. Legislative processes are slow. They're incredibly slow when we talk about lawmaking. And as a result, when you decide to introduce new laws, the fast pace of technology will always outrun the adoption of new laws. But most importantly as well, if you were to pass a new law, you have problems with judicial interpretations, because the understanding of technology in the judiciary may lag behind contemporary understanding of how technology works. Then we have the problems of compliance complexity. We would have regulatory overload that is going to take AI innovators and startup founders, distract them from innovating and building AI solutions to tackle grand challenges, and rather focusing on dealing with compliance issues and regulatory lobbying. There's also an important reality in relation to AI regulation. More often than not, when you are talking about the need for a law, the agenda has already been set by the very so-called big tech firms that you want to protect yourselves from, because they have the influence to lobby the powerful legislators who are going to be adopting the so-called laws you want to prevent AI arms. In an African context, our priority should be the need for foreign investments. You would have seen in our presentation earlier on emerging trends on responsible AI use cases that the funding model in Africa is largely based on grants. Foreign investors are looking to maximize returns. They are not looking to go into a country where compliance will potentially hinder this. We need to be focusing on cost reduction how do we maximize the available infrastructure that exists globally for AI innovators to use that infrastructure to develop new innovations while reducing the cost of production and innovation. Thank you so much.
Innovation should be regulated. What we've heard from my opponents has solidified that view that innovation should be regulated. Their worry is how. So the question is not whether we should regulate AI or not. They agree that we should. They also agree that regulation is already in place. They are just wondering how can we comply. So we've had things around anchors and albatrosses around the neck of innovators, weighing them down, with them worried about compliance. And the question shouldn't, like I said earlier, shouldn't be whether they should be regulated. They should, and they know that they should be regulated. The question is how. One of the reasons, and you've heard from Priya about, from a human rights perspective, the dangers of not regulating AI. But also even from the perspective of things like intellectual property, for example, you know already that you are thinking about an environment where we don't have a wild, wild west, where people just get to do what they like, but we want a level playing field, and regulation provides that. Because you want to be able to be sure that you are regulating along you're participating in innovation along the same or in line with the same rules that other people that are in the same space are participating. Another thing that you would agree with me is that you want to regulate innovation because it will catalyze and not crush innovation. You want to foster a thriving local innovation ecosystem, and an unregulated AI landscape is not a level playing field. You want a level playing field where innovator A, like bureaucracy, that has been mentioned by my opponents on this side, and you also want a Leo, for example, to be sure that bureaucracy is operating in the same or under the same rules as she is. You also then want to regulate because you want to build a market that is worth participating in. We must regulate AI in order to build and maintain public trust. Without trust, there is no adoption. And without adoption, even the most brilliant AI solution is useless. People need to be able to be sure that innovation or innovative products adhere to certain standards, and that's what regulation provides. The third reason is that we want to prevent a new era of digital colonialism. My inbox and my DM is flooded with innovators, some of them in this room, some of them outside this room, who are crying for innovation, for regulation, who are saying we do not want to operate in an environment of legal uncertainty. We don't want a situation where we don't know whether we are in line with the provisions of the law, whether we are in line with what the law provides or not. We want to be clear about what we need to do. So compliance isn't the problem. I'm going to be rounding off by also responding to, Fola has provided a list of existing regulations. And so you could also hear from Fola the cry for how should we address these existing regulations in a way that makes compliance easy. The second thing that Fola also mentioned is that the legislative process is slow. So let's make it fast. How do we make it fast? We make it fast by the innovators themselves providing the evidence that we need, that the lawmakers and the policymakers need in order to be able to provide regulations that work. So if you say to us as innovators that these are the areas where we have uncertainties, these are the areas where existing regulations affect the work that we do as innovators, then regulation can respond to your innovative processes in a way that allows you to innovate things fast. In closing, you heard things around innovators want to break things fast. We want to fail fast and move forward fast. If you break things, who is going to pay for it? So we need regulation so that you don't break things, but you are able to innovate. So regulation is what we need. The how is what we should be thinking about. Thank you.
Fantastic exchange so far. Thank you, everyone. I'll take volunteers from the audience. Anyone who wants to speak on either side, or we'll just continue the. Not yet. We'll have room for question. Yeah. Yes, please. Do you want to come up? Yeah. What do you want to argue for? Okay, so we need one person in favor in support of the motion. So what I'm going to do is, you're each going to speak for 3 minutes. I'll do the same. So I'll raise the placard at.
The arguments that you guys put, it was mainly based on the fact that you're saying that if we don't regulate, there's dangers to people. You mentioned the fact that suicide can happen, a lot of other things can happen, which is true. But my problem is, it seems like you're shifting the responsibility of education to the innovators. I mean, I think it's not because that somebody is committing suicide because there's a tool that we invented, or somebody's being harmed by this tool, that the tool needs to be eliminated. I think we should probably focus on educating people so that don't happen. But we can't stop the progress of humanity on using this argument. I think we should educate people, shift the blame to the people, educate them, but let the innovators be free and take us to places where we've never been. We want to go to the moon. We want to go to, what? I don't know, we want to go to Mars. We want to discover things. And we got many challenges in the world. I mean, we got 8 billion people, and it's growing. We need innovators to be able to find solutions for that. And we can't be stopped because we fail to educate people. That's my argument.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure interesting points have been raised, so we get.
I have 2 minutes, so let's get serious and let's not talk about going to the moon. We need regulation for fair markets. When we speak about AI billions and trillions, we know the global north stands to benefit the most here on our territory. Without market-based regulation, where is inclusivity? Where is equity? Who's going to the moon? When we speak about regulation and what it does, the trickling effect for innovation, we know that the European Union and global north territories have regulated for their markets. They have enhanced their investments in research, industrial capability, skills. They have committed and regulated access to R&D for maximum economically designed yield. We're speaking about investments in the region of 2.4 billion to 3.2 billion in Europe, in Asia 6.5 to 9.7 billion, in North America 12.1 billion, through regulation invested into the entrepreneurship ecosystem. That's what we need. Today, we are speaking about the plight of the African innovator, and this has to be on foundations of regulated support for the innovation ecosystem that we have to build.
But on that point, I just want to go touch on that and a few of these things. So one, please don't change the question to how can we comply. It was not about how can we comply. It was whether we regulate or not. The other thing was about leveling the playing fields. And yes, regulation might have I suppose, the role of making everyone have the same line to follow. But the playing fields have some, to use the ship analogy again, tankers and rowboats. So the people in the room are not the same. The other thing I just wanted to end with is that I spent a whole morning studying the question that our moderator posed to us. And the question didn't deal with whether regulation or innovation is right or wrong, whether we need to look at the harms caused by AI. It was just whether regulation hinders AI. And so to end, I would just like to point a finger at the moderator and say, please next time, set a better question for us so that we can have better debate.
Very excellent. On that note, we will go to vote. Oh, we need questions, actually. Let's get the questions first, and then we vote last. Any questions from the audience? And then get a quick one. Oh, so many questions. Let's do it this way. I'll take one question for each side. So you let me know where your question is directed at. Would you want to ask? For regulation. Okay, and it's something against regulation.
Against your right-hand side. And I don't want to get caught up in frivolous analogies, and I think we should let that go down like a sinking ship. And I don't want to take the wind out of your sails either. But it's incredibly important to reflect on the point that you raised about leveling the playing field. If we think over the last decades on the continent, we've been at a severely unfair disadvantage in how we provide agricultural, education, and healthcare services. We now have a leapfrog opportunity to level the playing fields, extend reach, to provide care to patients. Yes, we need to generate the evidence, and thank you to colleagues for raising that earlier today. But my question is, when we think about leveling the playing fields, how do we think about the communities that would be disadvantaged from not allowing these technologies to improve their social determinants and success in life?
Thank you. So it would be different this time. I'll take the other question, and you both respond.
I think I heard you say that you alluded to the fact I'm talking about the anti-regulation camp, that you actually made mention of allowing the innovation to regulate itself. If I didn't hear you correctly, it's like letting the market regulate trade as opposed to letting the government regulate trade or economic production. I picked that as you were arguing, and I hope that I picked it well. But at the same time, I wanted you to think about, if you are thinking about no regulation at all, because if you say that the system should regulate itself, it means that you've agreed to regulation. The question is, who should regulate? But if you are saying absolutely there is no regulation, the question I'm asking you is, what can you think about a situation or any system or anything that has evolved without any sort of regulatory mechanism that has benefited humanity in life? That is the question I'll put to you then.
Okay, thank you. Did you get the questions? Yeah. Okay, this time we could switch the order. Who wants to go first? Which team wants to go first? There you go.
A height issue. Okay, so I think your question is very much linked to what the supporting person said for this side in terms of education and educating people about, what the tools would do. And I think it connects to how does the AI innovation then address, level the playing field to make people who have been previously disadvantaged to, catch up and be sort of at the same level with other people in society. The thing with regulation in that space is that it is not coming to freeze innovation. It's not coming to stop whatever products or tools that are being developed as a result of innovation. Instead, it is saying, let us understand the environment that we are playing in so that in responding to the problems or challenges that people have, you don't end up creating new problems. So if you're going to come to a community, for instance, that need, say, access to better healthcare, you need to first understand the needs of the community, not you telling the community that you need this, but you responding to their actual needs. And regulation operates in that space to allow you to give you the tools for which you would use to ask the questions from the community, get the answers from them, process it in a way that is lawful and legal so that you can then respond in a way that doesn't create new problems. So yes, to leveling the playing field with innovation, but also yes to regulation, providing the parameters for everybody to innovate and operate.
Thank you very much.
I think an important point that was made earlier on was about the need for legal certainty, which is ironic because how can you be speaking about legal certainty by aiming to introduce more laws in a landscape that's already complex? And my colleague also said something about the fact that, well, you can improve the bureaucratic process by asking innovators to come and work on that. They're essentially asking innovators to leave their core work to come and work on lawmaking, which again is taking them away from innovation to improving bureaucracy that is unlikely to function. Now, in relation to the question about self-regulation absolutely works because you would see that, well, it's not regulation because essentially it is companies essentially recognizing the importance of having a social license to operate. And if we were to take privacy as an example, there was an acknowledgement by a lot of big tech producing new technologies that majority of global citizens wanted to be able to protect their own personal data. And even in the face of very lax privacy laws, you have seen improved privacy-enhancing technologies developed by different tech companies. That is a way of tech companies responding to what society needs. So while we may acknowledge that there may be potential harms from AI, we are already seeing important innovative developments that are addressing these harms through a process of self-accountability. Thank you.
Since I got posted a question earlier, I thought I might have the chance to give my own speech. So I asked ChatGPT to write a speech for me. So I posed the question, does regulation hinder AI innovation? So here it goes. That's a really good research question. And it depends. So I think we have the answer for the first question in the morning. The answer is it depends. It depends a lot on what kind of regulation we're talking about, when it is introduced, and how it is implemented. So you are all answering actually. When, the question of how has come up. Let me break it down with evidence and arguments from both sides. Why do some argue that regulation hinders AI innovation? So the proposition team here. We have the issue of compliance cost, reduced flexibility, and the risk of regulatory lag, which you would agree with me has been some of the points made today. To the other side, it says, why do many argue regulation enables innovation? Trust as a precondition for adoption. You've talked about trust today. Level playing field. The issue of standards, which drives markets. I think no one's talked about that today, actually. Regulatory harmony and standards. Risk mitigation, which reduces shocks. Anyways, and it goes on and on, the typical stuff you expect from ChatGPT. Anyways, let's get into voting. Quick caveat on voting. You're not voting for your, normative beliefs. You're voting for the best debate today, okay? Are people comfortable with that? Okay. So I'm going to display a QR code. And here comes the result. Does regulation hinder AI innovation? The answer to today's debate is no. So, is the team. Round of applause, please.
So what do you think? Does regulation hinder innovation? Interact with us. Let us know. Find out how in the description of this episode. You've been listening to AI for Local Impact, a podcast produced by the Global Center on AI Governance. We explore the role of artificial intelligence in advancing development by highlighting work done through the AI4D program. AI4D supports responsible AI ecosystems where experts in developing countries can create solutions to pressing development challenges. It is funded by Canada's International Development Research Centre and the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. To learn more about AI4D, please visit ai4d.ai. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode, and join us next time as we continue exploring the big questions and local realities shaping AI for development.